Okay, so maybe we can start this new ALSET webinar. So today is a different discussion with a work in progress from Dr. Yong Foong May from the Department of Biochemistry at the Yong Lin School of Medicine. This is a more informal discussion about her work, and she is very happy to get your comments and feedback. You probably know already Foong May. She has been at NUS for a few years, almost 20 years, and she's has a strong interest in educational research, and she developed some research in competency mapping for life science students and how they can develop problem-solving behaviors in online discussions forums. So today's presentation will come back about the role of social annotation to foster student engagement. And Foong May has also recently completed a master's in research in education and social research in order to hone her skills in educational research. So this is a very bold move from her to develop this adult learning approach in this field. And we are very eager to hear from her about her research. So Foong May, the floor is yours now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Alex. Thanks for the invitation for us to share our work. So today I will talk about this piece of work titled "Can Social Annotation Foster Student Engagement? A Preliminary Study." So, so just maybe to highlight this term engagement, we're using it very loosely. So I know the experts will think of engagement in very strict terms, but here we're looking at maybe in terms of behavioral, all right? So what she and Melanie term as small grain behavioral engagement, right? So I also want to maybe highlight that this piece of work has been done together with my colleagues in the department. So Dr. Lisa Chong and Dr. Lisa Chong, who are both here. So they are instructors who actually assist me in the module teaching, right? So it's a bit of pre-module discussion to design the learning activities, including what we're going to discuss today, as well as getting involved in the analysis of the annotations that I will talk about. Right? So, so feel free to direct your questions at them as well. So maybe just a little background as to why we are interested in doing this. So every year, at least for one of the semesters, I teach second-year life science students. The topic that I teach is that of cell biology. And of late, I've started introducing research articles as my teaching and learning materials. So this is going towards trying to provide a more authentic learning for students to learn about how researchers actually answer questions in cell biology, right? Other than just what I've done previously, where I talk in terms of what is mentioned in textbooks, which are essentially conclusions from experiments that researchers have done. So, so this use of research articles has been something I've done at least for the past couple of years. Then other than this, the class that I'm teaching is a large class, so it's about 200 or so. It used to be even bigger, but nowadays it's about 200 or so. So, and I teach this mainly as the main lecturer with, of course, Lisa Chong and Alex assisting. So in that sense, for me, the sense of engagement with students has always not been ideal, right? So I was thinking of ways to support student learning in a more timely manner. So based on that, we thought maybe we could leverage on collaborative learning. So getting peers, meaning students in the same class, to help each other learn more about cell biology, and also in context of how cell bio questions are answered using research article. So because of that, and I was also fortunate enough to sit into one of Eric Mazur's talk when he was here a couple of years back, giving a talk at Yale, right, where he actually highlighted his social annotation platform. So the platform is called Perusal. It's free for us to use. And if you write to them, they will give you some code, and then you can actually integrate the assignment into Luminous, right? So that's the quite a good platform, at least as far as we think. that we can use for collaborative learning. So this is the background as to why we started using this platform. So essentially, large class trying to use research articles for students to learn about cell bio, and then leveraging on collaborative learning to deal with this one instructor versus 200 students, or even with my colleagues, 3 of us versus 200 students, right? So may I just try to explain or maybe back up our design with some theoretical frameworks that we are familiar with. So I already mentioned authenticity. So we now want to get students to think in terms of experimental data. So they should be able to analyze data. They should be able to interpret data to arrive at some kind of conclusions. And these conclusions and all, I have to say, are related to the topics or the concepts are introduced in class. So it is sort of a mix between me telling students about, yes, the cell behaves this way, right, based on some kind of textbook knowledge. And then here, this is one research article that can reflect some of the things we talk about. So in that sense, trying to introduce authenticity. I'm not sure in terms of the assignment, the perusal assignment or the social annotation assignment, it is fully authentic in the true sense of the word, where there are ill-structured questions where students actually have to solve and produce something, but it is, I hope, approaching that, right? And in terms of the learning environment that we have used, it is the platform itself, the perusal platform. So that, in my mind, is providing some kind of a virtual platform where students in small groups, right? Because we have large class, so we're breaking them into small groups. So in the small groups in this online learning platform, they have a nice environment or safe environment in which they can learn from each other. So this is bringing on the theoretical framework of authentic e-learning environment in designing the assignment. And of course, I mentioned already collaborative learning. So this is banging on Vygotsky's ZPD, right, where the instructor and as well as peers help students go beyond what they actually can do on their own, right? So these are the 2 theoretical frameworks that underline the work the design of our module as well as the learning assignment. So the research question that we were interested in when we started to look at students' work after the semester were these 2. Essentially, what were the types of student engagement behaviors when they do the social annotation, right, in their small groups using the online annotation platform. And also the second question, of course, is what was the quality of the annotations generated through interactions among students, right? So the first one, I think, speaks to my interest in getting students engaged with learning materials in this large class. And the second is having run this assignment using this online platform and thinking that we're doing collaborative learning. Were there 1, good collaborations, and 2, did the collaborations lead to some evidence that students were learning well, okay, or better, right? So these were the 2 questions we were interested in. So here comes some a bit more details as to the module information and how we did our analysis. So this module is an elective module. For that year, we had 224 students enrolled in the module. And the students were mostly second-year undergraduate students from the life science degree program, right? And then we got IRB approval to do the studies. So we sent out a request for students to consent to us looking at their annotations after the semester is over. In terms of the topics taught, there were at least 5 major topics. 5 major topics, and then we used 2 articles for 2 different topics, right? To try and extend beyond the typical textbook knowledge that I was trying to discuss in class, right? And then for this particular assignment where students have to make annotations on research articles together, we provided some kind of scaffolds, including a short guide that I have written on how to read research articles. So essentially telling students the structure of a research article, like the title, the abstract, and so on. I also provided some background on the research topic. So that's through my lecture where I talk about concepts and then try to bring in an example of a research question, right, published in the particular article to further consolidate students' understanding of the concepts. Plus also, as mentioned, I try to show them, right, how researchers actually answer questions. And then as part of the spot, I also have provided videos that students can watch at their own time on techniques, right, which are related to the research article. And then of course, at the end of the assignment for each of these article that the students annotate, together with Xiao Chong and Alex, we look at what were the common misconceptions, and then we try to answer those in a lecture. In terms of the assignment details, for each research article, students were given 2 weeks to read and then annotate on the research article, right? So this annotation, what I mean by that is that I generally try to provide some question prompts to ask students like what was the aim of the study, or what was the aim of this particular experiment, what were the methods used. So students can answer these questions by posting their thoughts at the perusal platform in a small group setting. And then in so doing, we were hoping that students can exchange ideas about what they understood, as well as what they didn't understand. Some students posted questions and then other students will respond, right? So we take this as a form of collaborative learning, which we hope could, address the deficit in how we can engage with a large class, right? So, so they had 2 weeks to do this. And then 6% of the students' final marks were awarded for 12 best annotation per article, right? So so this was not easy to do because I have to go through many of students' annotations and actually grade them. And then to actually make the students understand that reading the article is important, I actually designed quizzes. That means there will be a graded quiz for each article, which is aligned to the concepts learned, as well as also having questions about what was discussed in the research article, right? So it was designed this way. And then here is just a view of the perusal platform. If you haven't seen it, I think a couple of our NUS colleagues have already started using this. So this is just a snapshot of a research article where you see yellow or purple highlights. These are linked to students' annotation, right? So for instance, this purple highlight here. So if you click on this, then you will see, yes, there are at least two students posting some thoughts about the experimental data here. And then also one student maybe replying to some of their comments. So we can see quite clearly what students were posting. Okay, we might not know what they were thinking, but at least we can see their notes, right, regarding what they understood or didn't understand, and whether they were able to explain other people's questions or queries or notes, right, or misconceptions. And then of course, in this platform is quite nice because every year they have updates and it gets better and better. So here is an example of how the instructor can interact with the student. For instance, here by upvoting a student's comment. Of course, we as instructors, we can also post comments, right? Just that I didn't show one that's with our comments on. So so at the end of the semester, we downloaded the students' annotation in Excel format. And then from there, we extracted annotations of from the students who gave us consent to look at their posts in more details. So students, maybe it's backtrack a bit. So students were divided into groups of 6, right? So that is what we thought could provide a smaller and safer environment for students to learn. And then in terms of the analytical framework that we use two of them. The first one is the ICAP engagement framework, right, from Chi and Wiley. So we use this because this ICAP theory is based on active learning theory. So we think that this assignment where students have to go annotate the research article and explain what's in there as active learning, right? And of course, it is also collaborative, which is why we also thought this was a good framework, analytical framework for us, because this framework looks at not just students' very basic behavioral behavior of, let's say, underlining text, but also this framework has avenues for us to look at whether the annotations that students post were constructive or generative. In other words, were students able to write something that is a little bit more in more details than just merely posting, say, a definition of a particular cell biology term, right? And of course, what's attractive to us was the fact that there was one category of behavior termed interactive, right? Where the author said that yes, students have some kind of a dialogue between themselves, and then this is what provides the best learning outcomes, right, for students. So hence we use this ICAP framework to look at the students' annotations. Of course, we can't see the students' behavior in whether they were underlining or in underlining or what they were doing when they were typing, but we took the text, right, and interpreted the text in the context of this framework to see whether to look at to evaluate the quality of their annotations, right? So, so for this, yeah, it'd be good to know if this is the best framework we can use, but the data I will present will be based on interpreting this ICAP framework. The ICAP actually refers to interactive, constructive, active, and passive, right? So for them, passive to them is just a student listening to a lecture without doing anything. Active to them is maybe highlighting, right, just copying solutions, right, without adding anything new to it. Constructive to them is maybe producing some kind of a product which is beyond just pure verbatim copying of definitions, right? I think something like making a mind map, right, taking notes in one's own words. So something like this would be approximating what we hope to see when students try to post annotations to explain aspects of the research article. And then, of course, interactive, as mentioned, as you saw also in the snapshot I showed in the previous slide, we were hoping to see students interacting with each other and thereby having to put in a little bit more effort in understanding and explaining the research article. And that we took as the highest level of learning outcome we could hope to achieve or hope to observe that students achieve in our assignment. Yeah, so we took the students' annotations just at this level. We didn't really connect it to students' learning outcome in summative assessment. So hence, this is a very preliminary study to look at whether even this mode of teaching with a research article and using the online platform has any benefits, right? And then, of course, we also use a secondary analytical framework, this solo taxonomy, so the structure of observed learning outcomes, to examine a little bit further those annotations we categorize as interactive, right? So this, we wanted to sort of have maybe an independent framework to see whether if indeed, just because students interacted, that their learning was actually better, right? So the solo taxonomy allows us to examine the posts in a different way because this taxonomy has this hierarchy of learning outcomes, right? From something that is pre-structural, where the student maybe is not really clear about what he or she knows, to unistructural, to multistructural, and eventually to the extended abstract, right? So I will show our interpretation of this solo framework in a subsequent slide. So essentially, we were hoping to see, we were just wondering whether the annotations, which included students exchanging views, actually went beyond something like unistructure, right, in which maybe students only were talking about just a very simple concept, right, to whether they were able to synthesize their knowledge at a higher level. So these were the two analytical frameworks we used, right? So I'll now go on to the results and discussion. So here, I will just show you how we interpreted the ICAP descriptors, right? Because essentially we were only looking at text, right? Annotations that we obtained from students' assignment, right? So if we look at ICAP, right, as mentioned, they have the passive category, active, constructive, and interactive. So because we're just looking at students' annotations, for us, passive would mean to us that the student didn't participate at all, right? So here we would say no annotations observed, right? So that would be students who didn't participate. And then under the active category, we interpret this as students posting annotations, but with minimal consideration of the contents in the research article. So an example would be just simple labeling of materials or just reiterating contents already stated in the research article. Or in some cases, I maybe remember students just posting verbatim what I said in class onto this thing. So maybe that's also considered something that's active. So an example would be something where students just put a position marker and then just highlight, oh, this is the nucleus, right? So that is, but that's still considered active because at least the students did participate in this assignment. Then for the category of constructive, we would say look at annotations that where students actually were able to maybe provide some more details of the research article, right? Like say analyzing a particular piece of data in the presented in the research article, or making some kind of explanation, right? Or making some kind of claim, right? So inferring from the data in his or her own words, right? So some examples could be seen here, like a student asking a specific question, right, about the localization of a protein, right, due to the phosphorylation state of this protein, and maybe providing some kind of answer to his or her own question, right? But under constructive, we are looking at so we categorize annotations where students were able to do some of this analysis and interpretation of the data, but has no interaction with other students. So they just look at the article, look at the data, and then they just say, okay, I think this means that, and also maybe go through some detailed elaboration of what they thought of the experiment and all the data, right? And then for interactive, this would be students who have done the above. That means likely their annotations would be of a certain level, which means they have provided some thoughts as to what, say, a piece of data mean, but then maybe posting on top of that their own question, and then somebody responding, right? And then they respond back, right? So that would be the ideal, but I'm not sure if we saw many of this post answer, then answer to the answer, right? I think we might have seen posting and answering, right? So yeah, I'll elaborate a little bit on that. There's some deficit in the number of real collaborative learning, right, that we could observe, right? So this is how we interpreted this ICAP descriptors. So so at the first level, so this was work done by Lisa Chong, right? I think this, mainly by Lisa Chong, right? And then of course we discussed together with Alex as well. So we did the simple thing, right? Looking at frequency count of the annotations, right? So this ICAP categorized annotations, right? So we had quite a number of students who consented, but because there were only 3 of us, and also mainly Lisa Chong doing the analysis, we randomly chose 30 students to analyze their annotation. So among these 30 students, participation rate was very high. So only 1 student didn't post any annotation, right? Yes, but the end number is only 30, right? Then among the other 29 students who posted annotations, we got a total of 475 annotations. And this came up to an average of 16.4 annotations per student. So this number is higher than what we required for the assignment, right? So minimum, we wanted a minimum of 12 annotations. So for this 29 students, we got back 16.4 annotations. So we think that, so there is high level of engagement. So the question is the quality of the engagement, right? So in terms of why we think that there's high level engagement, at least for this assignment, because there are marks associated with them posting 12 annotations, and the annotations, we didn't really penalize for misconceptions. So as long as they were able to annotate and all, we gave them the marks, right? And then we also provided scaffolds, right? So in terms of how to read a research article and question prompts for them to answer, which they can use as annotations in the assignment. So perhaps the bar for participating in this assignment is not that high, right? So hence, this kind of assignment using scaffolds, marks associated with the assignment can help student participation, right? But the question there again, as I said, what is the level of the annotation, the quality of the annotation, right? So when we look further into the 475 annotations and categorize them into the ICAP classification. So of course, we didn't now put in any passive because one student didn't post and that's passive, right? So of the other annotations, 20 were active, as in we categorize them as active. So this is just very basic, like highlighting a cell or something that is not really generative. There were 20 of them. So this amounts to 4.2% of the 745 annotations. And then we can see mostly the annotations were constructive. So about close to 80% of the annotations were constructive. And then in terms of interactive annotations, there were 16% of them, right? So this is, to me, a little bit disappointing because this was meant to be a collaborative learning activity. But of course, it doesn't mean that just because students don't interact, they were not learning from each other's annotations. It's just that overtly, what we can see in terms of interaction, such as student asking question, another replying, and then there's some other replies and so on, those numbers were relatively low compared to the constructive ones, right? So at the very least, we can say based on the high number of constructive comments, students were, we think, were highly engaged with the platform to try and generate meaning for themselves as to what the research article was about, right? And hence understand the article sufficiently, maybe to be able to answer the quiz that is tagged to this assignment, right? Yeah, so this low number or level of interactive comments, right, among students, we think is because we didn't really include any assessment on interaction, which means we didn't say we give extra marks if you interacted with each other, right? So hence, maybe because of the lack of this enforcement of interaction among students, the students didn't really feel any compulsion to do that, and so they probably see this assignment as something that's for themselves, right? So they can learn by just annotating and or maybe reading other people's annotations without the need to interact with others, right? So hence, although students did participate in this assignment and we can see overtly what they annotated as being constructive, the interaction among students was low, right? So then we decided to also then just take a look at the interactive types of annotations using the solo taxonomy as mentioned earlier on. So here again is how we interpreted the solo taxonomy, right? So let's see, for something that's we classify as a pre-structural kind of a annotation which was also interactive. The annotation had to be along the lines of students not really knowing what the article was about, right? So typically among those that are interactive, we don't see this kind of annotation, right? Because also based on the ICAP framework, there was sort of a pre-selection that the interactive annotations are likely to be constructive plus have some elements of interaction with students, right? Then as for unistructural kind of annotation among the interactive ones, this will refer to students maybe interacting with his classmates, but on maybe one aspect of the article. So something like just a short reply to a student's annotation without much interaction, right? So here, yeah, the student had interacted, but he mainly just agreed with a classmate student, right? That the research article was unclear about certain aspect of the protein, right? So this was interactive, but not really fulfilling the criteria of having some elaboration, right? But he did nonetheless provide his thoughts on whether he agreed or not with the student, with the classmate he was responding to, right? Then under the multi-structural level of posts which were interactive, this requires for us to classify those annotations as multi-structural, it required the student to elaborate a little bit more on a concept, right? But this could be maybe short of providing any significance to the concept, right? So so there was some effort, right, in maybe some level of synthesis, but maybe not linking concepts together, or maybe not too accurately, right? So this is an example of an annotation that we think is multi-structural, right? So the students said, yes, it probably occurs in G1 phase. I think it is possible that phosphorylation occurs in other phases, but maybe too late and so on. So he did try to agree with his classmate that yes, something occurs in particular phase during the cell's some cellular process, right? And then he did provide some maybe possible explanation to this, but didn't really extend it further, right? So hence we stay here without providing any significance, right? Then of course we have the next level of the solo taxonomy, and that's relational. So this is where students in the students' annotation, they were trying to deal with multiple aspects of the paper, right? And then was able to make clear connections, right? So for example, the students were able to explain some kind of the results or data, right, with some conclusions. And then here we see, yes, I think that some of these answers are very feasible, but I would like to propose a step further, and so on, right? So here he was trying to extend from the results to conclusion to maybe elaborating a step further, right? So this is relational. Then of course the last category on the solo taxonomy is the extended abstract, right? So here they were able to interpret the data, make the conclusion, right, link a few concepts together, but then also maybe went one step further and link it to a maybe more generalized concept, right? So this is under extended abstract, right? So here the student posted how he interpreted the data, and then how he tried to explain what the data mean. Then here, this part is a little bit extended, right, beyond the very topic of the research article, right? So he tried to link, okay, this research article is that of cell division, right? And then he tried to link cell division, not just in and of itself of cell dividing, but cells dividing, and then how that can be used for replacing cells which have been removed by the system for some reason, right? So he extended it beyond what was discussed in the research article. So that's extended abstract. So when we look at the 77 interactive annotations, this was the distribution of the different levels of annotations. So majority fell within relational, right? And then yeah, a few unistructural, like close to 8% were unistructural, 14% were multi-structural, 80% relational, and then maybe only one that had this extended abstract level, right? So in terms of the quality of the post, then for those that were interactive, right? So maybe because of the interaction, students had to elaborate on their understanding, and then by doing such elaboration, they were perhaps forced to maybe make better connections among the things that they understand, right? So this is maybe some evidence for us to say that such an assignment where we get students to collaborate could help students extend their understanding, because through explanation, they have to have a better understanding of their own concepts and so on, right? So this was the extent of our study that we could do among ourselves. So this is just, as I said, it's exploratory study. We only looked at annotations from 30 students, but they gave us close to 500 annotations to look at. And among these, yes, we observed high level engagement. The platform to us, I think is a very nice platform. I don't think students had problems using it, right? So for us as instructors, getting students to use the platform allow us to look at the annotations during as well as after the semester to get a sense of what students understood as well as didn't understand properly, right? So during the semesters, we can provide feedback, and then after the semester, we can then think about like better designing our assignment, right? Such as to improve the ways we foster interactions, maybe by providing some component of the marks, right, to assign to collaborative work among the students, right? And then, of course, this low levels of interaction, as mentioned, we could do something to try and foster their interaction, right? So maybe include some group accountability in the assessment, like maybe giving group marks, right? Where we say if a group interacted well, then we can maybe provide some marks for that. Then, we could also provide some kind of guidance, right? Like rephrasing misconceptions within the group, and then reposting this misconception as questions into the group, and then getting the group, right, the students within the group to discuss this misconception that is maybe shown by one of the group members, right? So we can do some of these things based on the information we gather, right? And then lastly, from our study, as mentioned, we can sort of look at possibly the students' level of engagement, the level of their understanding, but in terms of the true learning outcome as to whether they perform ultimately better in the summative assessment, if they had interacted better or if they had more constructive comments. We have not done that. So this would be at some point interesting to see, because the assignment, I think it is a good way for students to be exposed to research articles, not alone, but with their peers, and also provides this maybe more authentic learning for students, right? But the outcome in terms of their performance in summative assessments, we think it is a very important part that we need to do at some point in the future. Yes. So I think that's all I can tell you about this short piece of work we've done. It only leaves me to acknowledge the team at Perusal for giving us access to the platform, as well as to students who consented to the study. So thank you very much for listening to me. So I'll be happy to answer questions and or take feedback from you as to how we can improve this piece of work. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Foong May. It's a very original approach, and indeed it raises question on the benefits of such online platform, how it can reshuffle the opportunity for everyone to talk. It might give this opportunity to different people than during live discussion, and indeed maybe prevent sometimes some interaction between students. But let's hear from our audience and any question or feedback from everyone.
I was curious about how dependent are the annotations on the questions that you pose on the platform? And what I mean by that is most of the discussion actually based on the questions you put there, or do the students actually start their own elsewhere?
So I posted some question prompts. So some students actually answered those questions, but I think there were other students who made their own comments independently of the prompts, right? I'm not sure if we had done like analysis on what proportion of students merely answered my question, but that's a good point. I think maybe Lisa Chong, we didn't do that, right, at this point. We were just looking at just the comments, right?
Yeah,
Lisa Chong's still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still. Hello. Yeah.
We just look at the comments, but usually the question prompts that were provided to the students were very broad. So, I mean, if the prompts are very broad, right, then whatever the students wrote could kind of be linked to those question prompts in some sense also. But of course, students will usually write more than that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe by that, maybe I elaborate, like maybe one of the question prompt could be, let's say for figure 1, I would have something like, what were the authors trying to demonstrate in figure 1, right? So but I think that's what Xiao Chong mean by it's very broad. So then students' answers could be broadly linked to that, right? So
yeah, I think like the types of annotations that you would get would depend a lot on the question, how it's framed. I mean, this is something we've learned like with the team-based learning, right? Like the quality of the discussion is very highly dependent on how good we were at making the questions, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, so we need to look at our questions and maybe try to write questions which are directed at maybe getting students to think deeper or like generate conclusions of their own, right? Or maybe questions that could drive them to argue with one another.
Yeah, and I don't know what the right balance is either. I mean, open-ended questions are useful because then they're free to take the discussion where they want. Yeah, at the same time, sometimes the discussion can benefit from providing a direction where we want the discussion to go. Because oftentimes we want students to appreciate not only why one particular idea or concept might be right, but also why they can reject like other ideas, especially with like multiple choice questions. Like a good multiple choice question will not only have like the best response, but then all of the other options will make you think about like, okay, why is that not right? And then you have to talk through it. Yeah, so I don't know what the right formula is for the the type of platform that you're using, but I know I just wanted to comment on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
the other thing I was thinking is that like when it comes to interpreting like the type of annotation, I'm not so surprised. I think that there aren't so many like interactive annotations compared to like constructive annotations, because I think that when a student provides some kind of resolution to the question that's being posed by other students, then like the conversation kind of shuts down, or it doesn't go much further than that, right? So as soon as a student tries to step up and resolve the issue, they're killing the discussion sometimes, right?
Okay, that's true. Yes. So again, goes back to the type of questions that maybe we should also interject and then pose the next level of questions to get students to respond to maybe broader issues linked to the responses, right? But I get a point. It's resolved. Yes, he answered the question, so yes, we're done. Then move on. And also, I think students here also tend not to challenge, right, back the answers, right? But maybe there's scope for us to go in and interject.
They might be a bit shy to just interact and say something that they might sound a bit dumb, or so when you're just discussing, it's easier to say something and we just forget about it. When you're writing down on a forum where everyone can see, of course it might slow you down.
Yes. That's a good point. Yes. So yes. live discussion is actually more fun. Yeah, but with 300, we resorted to something, yes, like you said, they have to actually put in black and white their thoughts, and it's linked to their names, right? So yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe having a small focus group or some question with them afterwards to ask how they feel about this kind of discussion could be interesting as well.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, but since the pandemic, so since you're talking about discussion, so since during the pandemic, what we've done is we still maintain this perusal assignment, but we also open up Teams, using the Teams platform to put students in virtual tutorial groups, and there we give them time to discuss questions before posting on the perusal assignment. So then the perusal assignment morphed into something else. But going back to what you're saying about face-to-face verbal discussion, I think the Teams virtual platform or virtual tutorial gave them a different avenue where they could say things and it was not recorded, and they could maybe pose questions which they otherwise won't, or respond in a way that they might not on the perusal. Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Yong. That was a really good presentation and really clear. Thank you so much. I guess I have one comment and a question. So the first comment is more of just like looking at the general structure of how students were also graded, as in it was part of the assignment for them to actually interact with other classmates. And I was just wondering, I mean, there isn't an answer to this per se, but it sounds like it might almost kill off the purpose of learning if we were to tell students like you will be given more marks if you interact with your classmates in your comments on the paper. And I don't know, I think for me personally, because I did my undergrad and it was done overseas, like that, I could never fathom something like that being used as an incentive, because naturally all my classmates and I would just argue and, you know, like challenge each other, and like, you know, people be annoyed, but that's like what is very common. So in the spirit of learning, I guess it's a bit sad to hear that, you know, you would have to use marks as an incentive to get them to interact, because then it's like, well, are they truly doing it because it's also part of the learning process? Is this truly a learning behavior, or is it, you know, a stimulus driven response of like, oh yes, I need my participation marks, you know, especially I'm life science. I'm not sure what the nature of like the cohort is. Perhaps they're more competitive, but yeah, that's just something I was thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I struggled with it myself, right? Because yeah, I've ever in my more innocent days, I have actually opened up forums in the learning management system, and no marks associated, and it's literally zero participation, right? And this was this is not the level 2000, this is a level 3000 class, which was at that point maybe smaller, maybe there were 60 to 80 students, but it was that there was zero. It was really zero, and I even had a student commenting in the feedback saying that, of course it's zero, there was no mark, so what was she trying to do, right? So so that was but it's something real, and I appreciate that students have maybe too many things to do and they won't do anything unless there was something associated with grades. I mean, I totally agree with you that it should not be grades driven, but then I can also tell you, like in this year I'm now running a third year course where we have fewer than 20 students, and we will be sitting in class and we will be getting students to present. Of course, the presentation is participation mark dependent, but then after that we have open discussion, and students were willing to maybe say things and discuss without any marks. But I'm not sure, maybe because it's a smaller class, we were face to face, it was verbal. And going back to Alex's point about, yes, people might not want to annotate things they are not sure of, and also, yeah, just the setting of it being more cozy. As to, yes, whether we can drive learning independent of marks, I wish we could. I really wish we could. I mean, I was so disappointed with my no participation forum a few years ago. Yeah, yes, maybe, yeah, I'm not sure, maybe, yeah, if everybody else in the science discipline found the same. Yeah, maybe you can ask Francis later. Yes, but you have another question. Oh, you have a question?
Yes. So my next question pertains more to data analysis, and I was very interested in, I think, so I saw 475 or 479 total annotations. I was interested if you sort of plotted the annotations and sort of took the two most separate groups. So participants who gave the least number of annotations and what the quality of those annotations were, as well as participants who gave the most number of annotations and what the nature and the quality of those annotations were, and sort of compared the two. So it's combining qualitative and quantitative. I was wondering if that was done to sort of get more insight.
Yeah, I don't think we did it in that. I mean, that's a very good point. I don't think we did it that way. We just straight off went for categorization under the ICAP framework, and then of those interactive, then we went and did the solo analysis, right? But maybe Lisa Chong, your comment, we didn't do it that way, right?
Yeah, we didn't do it that way.
Because but it's a good point.
Yeah, it's a good point. But for the first cut, we just try to see as a whole group how they perform, like what are the characteristics. Yeah, we didn't go to the individual students per se.
Yeah, not at that level. I mean, even this took us some time to figure out and do so, because by nature we are cell biologists or molecular biologists. This is not intuitive for us, right? So
right.
But yes, but this is something we definitely we should be able to do this, right? Because we have the information in the background, right?
But the thing is that because we credit participation marks based on minimal 12 posts, for instance, in this setting. So that means that, I mean, most students, they will stop perhaps at 12.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is like that 12 group versus people who are giving like maybe 15, 20, could there be something underlying? Like even within that 12, are people mainly just going for the bare minimum of the bare minimum? You know, that's what I'm interested in.
Okay.
Yeah, because on average there was 16.4. So that means there were students who posted more than 12, right?
Yeah.
So they post many, but very, very active type, or the A type versus the I type, right? Yeah. But it'll be interesting to know that. Yeah, I'll be very happy to know if all the very good ones were also people who posted more. Maybe I don't know.
Because it seems like to me it could be that if it's interactive, then maybe they're having more comments, but like if we were to then subject that to the solo framework, perhaps they're not quite hitting, because from my very brief reading of the slides you presented on solo and ICAP, it seems like they're similar, they're tapping on similar constructs, but they're also a little different, because solo seems a lot more diagnostic of the type of information they're taking away and regurgitating, whereas ICAP is a lot more focused on that social aspect of learning as well. So yeah, I was just like toggling between the two in my head. Yeah,
we use this too because we think that there was a benefit of looking at the interactive using a independent framework, and solo gave us that more scope, right, to delve into what the I is, because under the ICAP, the I is constructive plus there's some dialogue, right?
Yes.
But their constructive is just generative. So as long as they posted something which was beyond just pure, copying a definition from elsewhere, that is taken as generative, but it might not score high necessarily on the solo framework, right? Yeah, but that's a good point. I think we can, but the information is there, right? Lisa Chong, we can do this at some point.
Yes, we can do this at some point. Definitely.
Yes, yeah, because I forgot to mention, actually this work from this prelim work, then we actually got seed funding. I mean, okay, this is a pre-seed funding. We actually got seed funding from ALSET to do more in-depth work, which we actually have done, but haven't had the time to put together, right? So yeah, then as I always say, pandemic happened, then we all lost track. Or maybe the three of us lost track. Maybe other people haven't lost as much track as us.
All right, thank you, Dr. Yong. Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Thank you so much for your questions.
Maybe Francis or Kitman, you turn on your camera. You have some questions.
Yeah, hey, thanks Foong May for sharing. I've always been wanting to use this perusal platform plus like the peer instructions, but didn't have time to develop the content.
Good to know we are not the only one struggling.
Time is always an issue. Yeah, so I have a few questions. I noticed that this study is done before COVID, right?
Yeah.
During COVID, before COVID, I think students have like face-to-face time, right? They move from LT to LTs together. So in a sense, they know each other. There are some face-to-face interactions between students. But during COVID,
no, they were randomly assigned, so they might or might not know the person assigned to them in their group.
So yeah, that's another question I wanted to ask. If students were to be able to, if they are allowed to choose their own groups, right? Would it be more interactive in a sense because they might feel psychologically safer because they know each other in a sense?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with literature on choosing group mates. I'm not sure Zheng Wei or Xiao Chong knows, but so far we didn't because purely of the number, and then the perusal platform was so nice to say, oh, you can let us randomly assign, so happily subcontract this part to the platform, right? I'm not sure, maybe Zheng Wei or Xiao Chong, do you know anything about students choosing their own groups?
Okay, we never. Then partly also because our students, I mean, for our course per se, our module, we actually have students who really coming from mixed background, and we expect it to be even so with the CHS in upcoming academic years. So actually, the idea is having a group of really from mixed background is on our ends, and something that we're interested in upcoming academic year is really to see whether students who have biology backgrounds compared to students who totally have no biology backgrounds, and when they come in together as a group, then whether the interactions are solved. So that is something that we're interested in. We never do so-called like specific grouping based on students.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing the students or let the students choose. But we do have, other colleagues who actually tried that, and apparently from his basically his own personal views, right? So Prof Tilos. So he actually says that what he did was he gave the student choice. So first half of semester is just random grouping. Then at the mid-sem, then he gave the student choice. You can make your own grouping if you wish to. Actually, all students prefer just to stay with the same group. That's why they don't know each other. But I'm not sure whether it will help. Or it will change if it's the other way around. That means that you can choose your group to begin with. Then let's say now you are given the options to actually mix with someone who you don't know, whether students will actually prefer that, right? So it's this one, we don't know.
Yeah, so don't know. So so in terms of literature, I wasn't looking at this. So maybe somebody else can help you with that. Sorry.
Maybe let me just share a bit. Because we have been doing, in chemistry, we have a few lab modules. My lab module is the only lab module that allows students to choose their own lab partner. And then the rest are just arranged in alphabetical order. So based on conversation with students, I think it's a more pleasant experience.
Okay.
And they are more willing and daring to speak up. So I think it may help.
Okay,
second thing is I have another colleague, right? He also do like in-class kind of, they do productive failure. So they have discussion, group discussion during the lecture session. So what we did, right, we actually usually have a self-assessment of prior knowledge before the semester start. And then my colleague will help like mix the weaker student with the stronger student on certain topic. Maybe that may be considered next time. I mean, if not grouping. I think it may work if the sentimental is okay and if students know each other.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we can think about that.
Another question I have is, have you compared the grades, like the student performance before using this approach and after?
Yeah, haven't yet. Yeah, we haven't yet. Also the IRB, when I wrote, I think we say independent of grades. So maybe that's why we did that. But also partly because I have concerns about the summative assessment. How is it aligned to the instruction and as well as these activities? So before I fix that, I have no confidence that the summative that we will get anything informative, right? So maybe that's a part that I have to fix first, right? But it's a good point. I think it's always interesting to see the things we do in class. At the end, does it lead to anything, right? But of course, of course, I have broader questions like, yes, then is it transferable to the subsequent years and so on? So so we are thinking about that, but at this point, I feel not adequate to do that kind of studies yet. Yeah.
It will be interesting to see, like, let's say, the frequency of the annotation and also the quality of annotation whether it leads to like better student performance. And like what you mentioned just now, I think that piece of information will be quite interesting.
Yeah, you should. Yes, yeah. I need to maybe fix the alignment better and then do a proper study. Yeah, but I get a point. Yeah, this is definitely the reason why we want to do this type of changes in our teaching approaches.
Thanks, Foong May.
Thank you. Thanks, Francis.
Thank you. Sorry, I know we are running out of time, but just to put in the final comments.
Yeah.
Francis asked all the questions that were burning already. I wanted to ask those questions earlier. So thanks, Francis, and thanks for answering, Dr. Yong. But just a comment. I use this actually quite a lot, not the perusal platform or any social annotation platform, but just to annotation of the text that we give them. Because I teach communication in the information age for computing students. So shorter text, but they also annotate the comments and then we discuss it in class and so on. So, but I felt this talk was really useful because you showed me how we can analyze, you give me some examples of frameworks to analyze these annotations. But yeah, the one question that I really had throughout this session and something that always bothers me is, how does this impact our students' learning, right? How do we show that it's impacted students' learning? I mean, it shows engagement, yes, but really that's the most difficult question to answer.
Yeah, it's frustrating, right? I mean, maybe, we need help. Alex or Kevin, is Kevin still here? Like how to transpose this type of, learning activities, formative assessment to ultimately showing that indeed students learn, right? Of course, I can claim, if I may claim, that the fact that students can post comments which are either multi-structural, relational, and so on, to me is an evidence that they have somewhere some knowledge or some ability to do that, right? So in and of itself, the annotation can show me students can do more than just listen to us talk about the concept, like this didactic lectures. But like your questions, then what does it mean, right? Maybe Kevin can help because I have no good
You're
answers.
trying to pull me out of the shadows here.
yes. Yeah, I don't know, because I think there's more that can be done, right? So
well, when I was listening, it was like, well, you kind of hope that the annotations don't correlate with the summative, because it's a very different task.
Yes.
And so it would, if the final exam can capture what you're capturing from the annotations, then it's like, well, then what's the point of either the final exam or the annotations, which I guess you could go either way. But I guess it paints to a larger picture of how many times during the course of their academic career are they going to be doing these kind of annotations or similar kinds of activities, because you can't localize whether or not they were able to do it before your watch, and if there's no other point in which you can capture it, you don't know if they learned anything on your watch.
Right, but it's not the annotation per se, right? It's whether they were able to abstract or extract the higher learning goals, right? That means being able to analyze data, make inference, and so on, right? And then how this ability to do that, like you said, maybe they come from my course, maybe not. But if they come from my course, then are they able to bring it forward to elsewhere, right? Maybe is that also Kip Man's question, right? Or our question of mine. So doing this activity, they learn about the particular article, right? But can it be transferred elsewhere?
When they have to actually do a lit review for their final year project, does it transfer to there? That kind of thing.
But then can I say it's due to my fantastic effort of getting them to annotate, right? I think that's the question we are all asking, right? Is it due to our particular module, our particular instructional design, and so on? That's
How much emphasis did you actually put on the generation of the annotations? Did you?
6%, and also I harp on it a lot in class.
Well, that's the mark side, but how about the training and the orientation? Or did you just say, oh, here's perusal, I expect you to do some commenting?
Yeah, no, so the teaching was based on the article, which they then subsequently have to go and do annotation and to demonstrate that they could understand what we were talking about in class and link it to concepts, and then later on answer my quiz question linked to the article, right? So this is maybe our very literal take on alignment and linking, right? So, but then how to go beyond like our question, like
it would be interesting maybe to see whether the more they take this kind of annotation, the more they draft annotations, and the more they contribute, and if they climb the scale of ICAP, and that could be a good indicator as well.
Mhm.
There is no bias of pre-test, post, pre-course test that might have its own impact, as we saw last month. Raising a question at the beginning might have an impact, but if we could track the participation of students, that could be a first indicators.
Yeah. So the subsequent studies, we wanted to track over the semesters if students improve in the quality of their comments.
Yeah.
So that is the work that I think that's the part that's funded by ALSET, which we we have it in our drawers. It's analyzed, but it's just not put together. Yeah. But I don't know whether does that still answer Kip Man's question? Because I can't answer, so I'm asking other people to answer.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, I think in the bigger picture, it's hard for us to talk about the impact on students' learning and it's transferable and so on, the skills that they learned here. But I think one small step could be that whether this social annotation activity or exercise has improved at least their understanding and appreciation of research articles more in general, and as you said just now, whether they understood what was presented in this particular article. Because it could be a difference of someone just reading, and then now because of this increased engagement through the social annotation activity, they come up with a deeper understanding of this text, and then they can make use of these questioning and thinking skills to apply to other texts. So maybe that can be measurable. I don't know, before and after, but it cannot be just based on one activity. I think you'll have to be a few texts, a few articles.
Yeah. And in the subsequent or the semester pass, we use more articles and we try to engage the student more on the platform. And then we also ran a student perception survey. I think I'm not sure if it's that year or the year after. At least from students' perception, they could remember the assignment. They could remember the name of the perusal. They could mention learning how to read research article. So, but that's again. I'm not sure if it's a very strong piece of evidence, but it is student perception survey. So we can gather like evidence around this, but yes. I don't know. Zhe Wei or Xiao Chong, any thoughts? I don't know. I mean, we're going a bit over time. Maybe comments on your side?
I guess just to, our last semesters, I guess the design that we have morphed eventually over the past at least 3 years. I guess I personally think the last semester the design actually quite more matured, because we do have 3 rounds of iterations of these perusal exercises. Then we also have for each perusal annotations, then we actually have a pre-tutorials and then post-tutorial questions on the same SAQ questions. So by that, we actually hope to be able to analyze it such that at least it provides some evidence to us that means that through the social annotations and the students coming together as a virtual tutorials, whether that helps them to improve on in terms of their questions, their answers to the SAQ questions. And then finally, we also have after each round of the so-called SAQ exercises, we do ask students to reflect themselves whether the virtual tutorial actually helps them to clarify any of their doubts and what's their role in the discussions, whether they contribute or they actually help the others or they actually receive something from the others. So it's like, this kind of that. So basically we tried to gather as much of evidence, but as in when we were able to get the analysis done, that will be, don't know, maybe another 5 years time or so. So I guess we perhaps we could able to gather some evidence in terms of whether the social annotations or even like, let's say a broader sense, our virtual tutorial kind of setting help students in terms of collaborative learnings and generate understandings of research articles. But back to the same questions, right? Whether these skills or these things that they actually learn from this module itself truly help them in future, I guess that is nothing that we can, I don't think we can address.
I mean, the reflection, the pre-post that Zhe Wei was mentioning, I mean, I have to maybe mention a caveat is that it also takes into consideration the the virtual discussion. So it's not just the platform itself already. So the module design changed and it became more complex. Of course, we're getting more and more data, but like with more and more data, I don't know when we are ever going to analyze this a lot more data in our computers or in the cloud, right? But yeah, we are trying to yes, get data, but no answer as to how to actually say it made an impact to students, right?
It sounds like you're very much in the discovery phase as well. It's like, so what is the data that's worth sitting down and analyzing, and then you can be more generative with the hypothesis. I was curious, do the annotations have timestamps attached to them?
Yeah,
so like,
they have everything. It's very informative.
So you could breadcrumb all the way through, like, to see whether or not their first comment was more on the method section or that was more on the intro section.
Yes.
Okay, well, so that might be something that you could do as well, especially if you've done multiple articles, to see if they're reading through it and they're scanning through it differently. Because that's one of those things that you can tie back to the literature of how do experts attack an article versus how do novices attack the article. Well, a novice reads from the start to the bottom and doesn't go back and forth, whereas an expert usually skips the lit review because they know it.
Yes.
And they go straight to the methods, or they go straight to the references.
Yes.
So that might be one of those things that points closer to where Kitman is coming from, of what are the skills that transfer out. I don't know if a three-shot deal could do it, but it would be interesting to see which trajectories change.
Yeah. So looking at the novice to expert scale, so the different framework as well, right?
And are they two separate skills? Is reading the article different than the annotation for the article?
But
so
reading article, reading article, I'm not sure it's recorded, right? I think just reading, scanning, I'm not sure that platform records those information. They might have it in the background, but when we download the Excel, it's already a lot of information, but I'm not sure we have those information. Like where do they zoom in? We can ask them, but then again, with additional information which we have no time to analyze.
Well, and then you sort of want an indication from the students whether or not they were doing the annotations in real time or they were doing it after they going through the entire article. That might be something interesting as well. But have them document their own approaches and see if their own approaches change, because that's data that you're collecting directly from them. Like it's one data element that you can analyze very easily, and then map it back to the more complicated trajectories and paths. Okay.
It can be counterintuitive because, as you say, some will skip some parts because they know already, whereas some beginners will maybe make a lot of annotations for something that is very obvious to the experts. So it's not the more the annotations, the better either.
Yeah. I mean, if I recall, some of the annotation students were annotating the materials and method and then asking very detailed questions which were not required for us. I mean, it's not a positive or negative. It's just that we can't tell whether they're doing out of curiosity or they really, like you said, it's because they're just literally reading line 1, 2, 3, 4, everything, and everything has to be properly explained. Otherwise, they can't go on or something we don't know, right?
But you can sort of profile students. So just the same way that you've coded their annotations, you can end up profiling. These seem to be out of my 200, this seems to be the way that students do things, and there are 5 different scenarios. So there's the one that marches and they get to their 12, and their 12 happens to be right about the beginning of the method section, and then there's no more annotations after that.
Yeah, we did tell them that the annotation have to spread throughout, and actually the perusal has some way of weighting it's quite good. You can weight your scores, the student scores, with the perusal platform based on whether the annotation was distributed evenly throughout or not. So it's a very good platform. I think it was fantastic that they did it and they let us academic institutions use it for free, right? But it's just too much information, too much data for us. So we were at some point working with Sasha when she was around and her collaborators to see whether are there automated ways of trying to classify the annotations, because we were like, it was a really eye-popping exercise, right? Trying to read through thousands and thousands of annotations, right? So, but I'm not sure. I think the answer is no. There's no simple way. It is always context dependent, and we have to feed some computer some vocab before they can help classify and so on. So that's not my realm. So if you know of anybody who's happy to do that, let us know. Yeah, classify. Yeah.
Yeah, and then hope that it transfers from year to year, because you might be able to train it up on a single article, but if it then needs to transfer to another article, you'd have
Yeah,
to
we change
retrain the model.
articles. Yeah, we change articles, but within the same realm. I mean, within the same topic or area. Yeah, so could be doable. But yeah, yes. Yes, so it has been a very enlightening experience just looking at analytical, because during the semester when we scan through, we don't use this type of analytical frame. We just look, is there conception, misconception, right? But then later on when we look, yeah, we find, yes, there are some problematic areas like interactions, for instance.
Well, I hope that this discussion was helpful to you.
Yeah, very.
It was interesting for us as well to have this kind of collective discussion. It's a good exercise for all of us, and to hear about this platform and these frameworks. Thank you very much for sharing this exploratory study indeed. And well, we are happy to, we are interactive indeed.
Yes, we are very interactive. If only our students could do this on their own.
I was trying to be passive.
Because we are recording, maybe we are not so interactive we would have been if we haven't. So
yeah. So, but thank you very much for the opportunity to share, and thanks all for making your comments and questions. There are certainly things that we can maybe go back and relook.
Okay, well, we are looking forward to hearing more from you then.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Feel free to get back to us if you want to discuss this further, and to anyone else in the audience to share about their research as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and have a nice weekend then.
Yeah, thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Alex.
Bye.